Each year, young Africans from around the continent apply to come to the United States to learn about U.S. federalism and how civic organizations work. Joining us now with more on this is Africa 54's Laurel Bowman. Laurel.
Well, thank you, Vincent. The Young African Leaders Initiative was launched by U.S. President Barack Obama in 2010, and each year the continent's rising leaders are invited to spend several weeks in the United States. They tour the country and learn about the American political process from the grassroots level up. We met this year's crop of young African leaders on Capitol Hill, where they were introduced to a packed room, including African ambassadors, business leaders, and activists, as well as dozens of U.S. political staffers. Manasseh Fatansoun of Togo says that the lessons he learned here are sometimes very simple, like showing up on time.
The ladies and the gentlemen who are working with us, when they tell you that you need to be here at 7 a.m., it is 7 a.m. But it's not the case in my country. In my country, if you say 7 a.m., maybe the guy will come at 8.
The gathering was moderated by Voice of America's own Shaka Sali, who asked members of the crowd if they wanted to comment. Botswana's ambassador to the United States did.
So please, as you move around, go with your chest out. Don't be apologetic, because Africa is a continent on the move.
Panel members took questions, and the issue of brain drain was on people's minds. Shehu Jega is a young leader from Nigeria.
The brain drain is as a result of the failure of leadership in Africa. Because, like in the US here, you don't need to tell anybody to come back home, because everything is there for him to do.
And of course, the idea of gender balance was bandied. There were considerably more African men represented in the group than women. What can women like you do to get ahead in Africa?
C'est que les femmes... Women like myself need to be conscious that the development in Africa is not just an issue for men, it's also an issue for women. And these women need to fight and they need to do business. If they don't have the opportunity to work in an office in a company, they need to create their own. And they can go to places like Europe and the United States and buy merchandise and start doing business in order to develop Africa.
One of the topics that the young African leaders explored while in Washington was the role of the African diaspora in Africa's development. Semhar Araia joins us now to talk about that. She heads the African Women Diaspora Group, DAWN, here in Washington. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So first off, how you had the opportunity to meet with some of these young African leaders. What can a group like yours actually do for them?
Well, when we've met with leaders in the past and even in this delegation, meeting with diaspora groups has actually validated their desires to become leaders in their own countries by seeing their counterparts abroad, by seeing what their sisters are doing in the continent with regard to African affairs. It actually motivates them and lets them know that they're a part of a larger network. We've been able to provide mentorship and training to our own members, but also been able to provide a sort of example and lessons to learn for our sisters on the continent.
And you think that can help drive development on the continent?
Yeah, and in our network, we represent an organization with 300 members, all African affairs professionals, women of the diaspora, who work on Africa, and many of whom are transnational. So they spend quite a bit of time doing development-related affairs, other African affairs on the continent. And so by DAWN as an example of what African diaspora contributions look like, we're able to also show communities on the ground that there are many professionals around the world who look like them, who understand where they come from, who can relate, and who can actually serve as conduits between the needs on the ground and decisions being made around the world.
Okay. You're focused on youth. Talk about how young and why.
Yeah, our organization focuses on the next generation of leaders. So for us, the average age is between 25 to 35. But we know on the continent that by 2050, the population is set to double from 1 billion to 2 billion. And we also know that 15 to 29-year-olds constitute about half of the population in many sub-Saharan African countries, and they will continue to make up that segment for the next 3 to 5 decades. So the continent is facing a massive youth bulge in the next 2 to 3 decades that we have to be prepared for. And as these populations grow, as economies grow, they're going to need to provide opportunities and leadership opportunities for these young people. People want jobs, people want opportunities, they want to know what's ahead. And for us in the diaspora, we're keenly aware of what happens when you don't have the opportunities. You need to go elsewhere. We want to encourage leaders on the ground to invest in their communities, to be a part of something bigger, and to know that they can contribute to Africa's development from where they are. But even if they are in the diaspora, there are ways to do it in African affairs.
Okay. Another quick question. We've looked traditionally to Africa for mineral resources. What do you think the future of Africa is? What do you think it will offer the world?
Africa's greatest resource is its people. And alone on population figures, we know we're going to rise, continue to rise. But beyond extractives, beyond resources and economics, it's also about harnessing the social and human capital of its people. And we know that in the future, we'll have more doctors and lawyers, we'll have more entrepreneurs. The space for innovation is already growing incredibly quickly. And so social entrepreneurship, creative solutions for needs on the ground, and also creative solutions around the world. Africans are active change agents around the world. And Dawn, we try to show that. We try to show what our members are doing in their own respective spaces. And the hope is that we can actually inspire the next generation.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Semhar is the head of Dawn, an African women diaspora group here in Washington. Vincent, back to you.
Well, thank you very much. And that's it for today, right here on Africa 54. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.